And I am already logged into a student's Capstone account. And you can see we're still in practice round 1. What's going on here is that the decisions have been uploaded for practice round 1 for the student, but we have not clicked on next round. You have to, this is a self process, so it means that you are in control of either advancing to the next round or redoing a previous round. And you can redo a previous round in the practice rounds as many times as you want. And as we said in class, that won't happen in the team competition rounds. Once you upload your decisions, the decisions will be automatically processed at the deadline, and we can't go back and replay rounds once we start the team competition round. So I'm going to click on next round and then advance game to the next round, continue. And this is going to ask you, are you sure? Yes, advance. And I'm going to go back to my dashboard. So now it says we're in practice round 2, but before I start making decisions for practice round 2, I'm going to look at how well I did. So I'm going to go to reports, debrief reports, and then the balance scorecard. So you can see I made a 36 in practice round 1. That won't mean anything to you. This is out of a possible 82 points. What you'll have to do is click on that number. You can see that it's a clickable, and look at the percentile ranking at the end of the round. We want to make 50th percentile every round, and then overall, if you do make 50th percentile every round, then your overall will also be 50th percentile or higher. Right now, we're at the 8th percentile. So we need to go back in and redo this round. But before we redo the round, what you want to do is go into your reports. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to click on continue to decisions and go into the web spreadsheet. And I'll look at the reports here and see what happened. So let's go to the front page reports. And let's take a look at what happened. Well, first of all, I can see my return on sales, which would be my net profit margin, is much lower than my competitors. So profitability is an issue. It looks like my contribution margin, which is the selling price minus your variable cost, the cost of production, is not that bad. We want to keep it at around 30% or higher, but it is lower than my competitors. So it's not so much, I think, in my cost of goods sold. It's going to be in my operating expenses. So when I'm looking here, I am making a net profit, but it's very small. It's $272,000 versus, you can see, my competitors are in the millions of dollars. So one of the issues that I'm going to see is that when I look at my potential first shift capacity, I have a lot more capacity than what I'm using. It looks like maybe I added capacity here. I have a lot of capacity, but I'm not using it. So what we would like to happen is that your capacity, your first shift capacity, be less than what you're actually utilizing. You can see that that's not always the case for your competitors either, but the one that is in best shape is Chester. And what that means is they're fully utilizing their production capacity. It allows you to spread your production costs over more units. There is a sweet spot, and the sweet spot is you would like to use about 150 to 180% of your first shift capacity. So we may have to look at selling off some of the capacity, or either that or trying to increase our overall demand so that we're producing more and utilizing more of our capacity. So it looks like, and looking at all of my products, my Able, the flagship product Able, which is in the traditional segment, sold the most, but we had a forecasting error. We way over forecasted. We were way too optimistic in our marketing forecast of Able. Conversely, we under forecast with Acre. How do I know that? Well, the unit inventory left over is 0, which means we most likely ran out of stock. The highest probability we ran out of stock. We might have ran out of stock in these other two, in these niche products, Adam and Aft, because the unit inventory is so low there. So we'll take a look at that. There's a little bit of a forecasting error there. We didn't sell much in the size segment. We may not have been focusing on the size segment, so we'll take a look at that. So you can see the traditional segment is our best segment. The red bar represents your potential sales. The yellow bar is your actual, what this means is that we did in fact run out of stock. And you can see we did with the Acre product, we ran out of stock. With the Able, we did not. In the traditional segment, we did not. But we sold a little bit of our Acre product in the traditional segment as well. And that's the one that we ran out of stock. So we really need to take a look at increasing our forecast for Acre, for the Acre product, and see what happened there, because we want to be able to meet our demand. When you under forecast for a particular segment, these lost sales, which doesn't represent a lot, but these lost sales go to your competitors, spread out over your other competitors. So you can see you were almost, this team was almost the top. They tied for the top seller in the traditional segment with Team Baldwin here. But we didn't come in first or second place because we ran out of stock of the Acre product. So we need to increase the forecast for our Acre product next time when we replay it. You can also see for the low end product, we significantly under forecasted here. This is our potential. This is the actual. What that means is that you see for all of our competitors, the yellow bar is higher than the red bar. What that means is they enjoyed the benefit of the lost sales due to our out of stock. And you can see the Acre product could have sold a lot more. We weren't the industry leaders. Our potential was really in last place as well. We need to take a look at what we didn't do. And you can see that our price was a little bit lower than the industry leaders. Our MTBF, we could go down a little bit there, cut our costs there. Our perceived age is higher. We could go up a little bit on our promotion and sales budget as well. That would get our demand up. So one of the things you will take a look at is how we can do better relative to our competitors, in each one of the market segments that you're focusing on. We didn't run out of stock in the high-end segment. We weren't the industry leaders, but we weren't the lowest sellers either in the high-end segment. So again, what we want to do, you can see we're down here. Aft is way down here. I'm seeing a lot of other competitors out there in this high-end segment. So, looking at that, we have very, very small, let's see. Oh, Atom, here it is. Atom is our primary product. And again, out of the 6 competitors, we are 5th in terms of market share. So we want to look at what we can do with Atom, maybe raise the MTBF a bit. We have some wiggle room on the price, reduce the perceived age. The perceived age is very important here. You can see the ideal age is 0, meaning if you're in this high-end market, you need to innovate every year. Maybe spend a little bit more on our promotion and sales budget too, so we can be more competitive in that area. We did pretty good in the performance segment, but again, we under forecasted. This is our potential. This is the actual. We could have sold a little bit more in the performance segment because, looking at, again, our MTBF is way low in that segment. We really need to do some innovation in that segment. And again, the ideal age here is only 1, meaning every other year. If you're in this segment every other year, you need to R&D the product to stay innovative in this segment as well. So we missed the mark a little bit in the performance segment, and in the size segment, we did pretty well. Doesn't look like we stocked out there. And again, we weren't the top seller in that segment, but we did have 2 products that sold in the size segment. So it looked like we missed our mark a little bit in terms of forecasting and also in terms of hitting the sweet spot in each one of these segments. So after looking at these reports, again, review the reports. before you go back and redo the round. So I'm going to exit out of the web spreadsheet, and then I'm going to click on redo round. All right. So let's click on update. All right. And now we're back on practice round 1. It's important here to note that your decisions will not be erased unless you go into the web spreadsheet and erase them. Your decisions are still there. So I'm going to continue with decisions, launch the web spreadsheet again, and then see what happened in each one of these menus. All right. So looks like we did some innovation. We changed acre a bit. And I would argue, again, when we're looking at each one of these, we need to look at where the sweet spot should be. We did not innovate a gape. I would say if we're looking at our limited resources and you're trying to place them where you think you would get the biggest bang for your buck, then I would spend money innovating my niche products. These products, the 3 segments here where aft, Atom, and a gape are, find out where the sweet spot for each one of those. Those tend to be customers who have a higher expectations than the others. So we want to make sure we hit the sweet spot with each one of these. Acre, it's not so critical that we innovate with Acre. It's more critical, a little more critical with Able. Definitely with Aft and Atom, it looks like we're kind of targeting these 2 segments. Maybe we're going to allow a gape to just drift, and we're going to forget about that one. But if we wanted to stay in all 5 segments, we will talk about the sweet spot. So in there, you can go back to your reports again and see for each segment what is expected. So you can see that Able is our top product in the traditional segment. You can see that the ideal age is 2 years for Able. And right now we're doing a little bit better than 2 years. You can see where the MTBF range is. You can look at the ideal position and performance and size. And you can see that we're doing a little bit better with Able. Now, what I'm going to do, you can see here, Able in Acre, we are actually hitting an age at revision that's lower than the ideal age, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm going to do is make these changes with Able such that maybe I can get the product to market a little bit earlier. Let's see if I can do that with Able. 14.5. All right, so I've just really, I've moved Able back to the original starting point. So the small change that I made here is just moving Able back to the original starting point. So maybe I go to 5.75. Let's see if it'll let me do that here. Yeah, so that moves it just a tiny bit, but also my revision date is a little bit earlier. With Acre, I am going to erase what I did in each one of these categories, maybe go down a bit in my MBTF 13.5. All right. My size, I'm going to go with 16.5. And with my performance, we will, let's see, keep it at 3.0. Let's see what that does. Recalculate. Let's see, we'll bring this up to 4.0. Let's see what that does. All right. That's going to bring it. 5. Calculate. And I'm trying to figure out where it was to begin with. That's not actually. So we'll keep it at that. Now, there is one way, if you can't remember what you did, there is one way that we can just completely go back to the beginning, and that is to click on undo and undo to start of a round. and that will erase everything that you did before. We don't really want to erase what we did before. I would like to take a look at what we did with Acre so that I can undo it and use this money instead and spend it on a GAPE. So if I looked back, let me go back to my reports and my front page reports. Let's go to low end segment. All right, let's look at where we were. We were at an MTBF of 14, 3 and 17 on the size. So let's go back to 17 on the size. And I did reduce the MBTF a bit. And the reason why I reduced it is if you look at the low end segment, the MTBF can be as low as 12,000. So that's one area where we can cut costs and then pass those cost savings to the customer. So let's take a look at that. All right, so we undid what we originally did with Acre. We now have an age at revision of 4.6. Let's make sure that that's, yeah, so the ideal age could be as high as 7. So we're good on that as well. And we see that we can introduce this revision as early as January, which would be the beginning of the year. Now let's spend that money instead on a GAPE. What do our customers in this segment in a GAPE, which I believe is the size segment. Let's see. Yeah, it's the size segment. What are our customers expecting there? So with a GAPE, the performance is fine. The size is where we really want to focus in this case. So let's go down to 10.5 on our size. Let's recalculate that. All right. We're getting a little bit closer to the sweet spot, which is towards the edge for a GAPE. And let's take a look at where MTBF should be for that. The MTBF is 16 to 21. It's at 19 now. We might even take that up a bit to 19.5. Let's do that. Again, we're trying to meet customer expectations. So we have spent just a tiny bit of money innovating the traditional product, and we have an age, it's pretty young there. We've spent quite a bit of money innovating Adam and Aft and a little bit on a GAPE as well. So the only innovation we made in the low end product was just to reduce the MTBF so we could have some cost savings. And you can see when you look below, we did save a little bit of money, not a lot. We saved a little bit of money reducing the MTBF. Looks like we saved almost 20 cents. So now I'm going to go into the marketing decisions. And as you know, we want to make sure these forecasts are accurate. One of the things that we misforecast, you remember last time, was the Acre product. So we're going to revise our forecast for the Acre product. This benchmark prediction, when you read it, it says it is useful for experimenting, doing what-if analyses. It is useless for forecasting. So we have to go back to our reports. Again, when you look at these reports, keep in mind, this is what happened last year. Two things. One, the segment will continue to grow, and you can see that the segment growth rate is shown on the courier. So you'll have to increase your demand by that much. And that's if you change nothing. But if you made some improvements on the product and you've also invested in promotion and sales, then we would want to bump up the demand accordingly. Now, how will you know? Well, let's say we want to increase our promotion budget and we want to figure out how much more to increase our forecast. And this forecast, I think we over forecasted for Able, so we're going to adjust that. But before we do, let's take a look at the benchmark prediction, which again is not accurate, but it's good for just experimenting. If I look at the benchmark prediction, what happens when I increase my promotion budget? It looks like it increases by about 100. So what I'm going to do is take a look at what we did Again, in the traditional segment last year was 961 units. Multiply that times 9.2%. That's going to make it about 1,050, and then add another 100 to that. That's going to be 1,250, and that's going to be realistic. On this page, these numbers drive all of your other forecasts. So you can make some bad financial decisions if you are too optimistic here. On top of that, your inventory will not be accurate, which means that you can hurt your production capacity utilization, and on top of that, run out of money. So if you're too optimistic, when you make decisions on your finance page, can cause you to run out of money. So what do we do with the acre product? Let's go to the low end. I believe that's where acre is. Yes. So when we looked at last year's $1,493 last year, the low end segment is growing by a rate of almost 12%. So if you added 12% to $1,493, that's going to be about $1,650, $1,700. So here's where, remember, again, I'm going to increase the promotion budget. Let's see what that does to demand. Okay, that increases it by almost 100. So we're going to go here with 1,650. I think that's conservative for the low end product. And again, we're going to look over here to make sure that these numbers do allow us a decent contribution margin, and look at compared to what you're spending on promotion and sales. Now, if you're going to spend more on one than the other, I would spend more on promotion. That increases customer awareness. It has an impact on customer accessibility. It also has a bigger impact on, tends to have a bigger impact on demand. So again, I'm going to do that here. I'm going to increase the promotion budget for all of my products, but especially my top sellers, and recalculate. All right, you see I did get the demand up a bit in each one of those. I think for Adam and for Aft and Agape now, especially since I have made changes. Again, look at, for each one of these, look at what you sold last year and consider the segment growth rate. These niche segments are going to grow faster than the broad segments, but they are smaller segments. As you can see, they are niche segments. You can see the growth rate double digits for each one of those, but they are very small segments. So that's going to be our marketing forecast. It is conservative. It wasn't based on the benchmark. The benchmark, again, is just for you to do what if analyses. You want to be conservative on the marketing, but you want to be generous on your production so that you don't run out of stock and then give your sales to your competitors. So if 1,250 is my forecast, I do have another 189 on hand. I am going to produce 1,400. That would give me an inventory of 1,489. I feel pretty good with that inventory buffer. You can see I have too much production capacity. I want to sell part of this production capacity. Now, how much do we sell? Again, you can run 2 shifts. Your first shift is 1,800. We don't need that much. We want to leave enough capacity for future demand, but not so much that we're not fully utilizing at least our first shift capacity. So I'm going to sell 400. That will give me some extra cash to use in other areas. All right. This is how much. You can notice this is the maximum investment that we have, but this gives us an extra $4,600,000 to spend in other areas. If this is my forecast for acre, this is only what I have left for acre. I'm going to go ahead and produce 1,750. That is more than my first shift capacity. So I'm not going to sell any capacity for my acre product line. If 350 is my forecast for Adam, this is how much I have left over. Again, I want to be generous. I don't want to run out of stock with Adam. I'm going to go up to 400. and I am going to sell, again, part of my production capacity, at least to meet my first shift demand, because I can run 2 shifts on each one of these. I can run 2 shifts. The same thing goes for aft. So I'm going to produce 400 and I will sell part of that capacity as well. I can always buy it back later on if I need to. If this product becomes hugely popular, I can buy it back later. Right, so I'm going to produce 400 and I'm going to sell. This will significantly help my production capacity utilization and my overall costs, I promise you. So I'm spending 15 million, or I'm getting another 15 million to invest. One of the things I want to do is get the automation way up on my acre product. This is going to help me reduce my costs. There is a double-edged sword in automation, and that is, if you automate, it makes it more difficult to innovate. So using robotics on your line, changing out the robotics is much more difficult than training human beings. It's going to take you longer to implement a new product change. So for that reason, it makes a lot of sense to fully automate your low-end products. You want to balance that out, though, on the traditional product and on your niche products, especially because you want to get your innovations to market as quickly as possible. So I'm not spending as much money on automation for my niche products that I have to R&D almost every round. I am spending a lot on my low-end product and some on my traditional product. Okay, so I still have money I can spend. At this point in time, I'm going to save that cash investment for other things later on in the future, because again, it's the first round and I want to make sure that my forecast is accurate. So when I go to my human resources page, you can see there are no decisions this round. You will have some decisions in the second round. And let's go to my finance page. Now, primarily on the finance page, we're looking at our ending cash position. It is correct that your current debt interest rate is much lower than your long-term, or I say much lower, it's 2 percentage points lower than your long-term almost. But here's the thing, you have to pay that back next year. So at this point, I'm going to zero that out. I'm not sure we need a loan. My ending cash balance is almost 8.5 million. To determine if I need to borrow more money, I'm going to my pro forma. Pro forma is another word for projected or forecasted. I'm going to my pro forma and I see 2 things. Number one, I see I'm losing money with apps. So I need to go back and increase my price or decrease my promotional or sales activity there. I also see this is my projected net revenues. So for the first round, especially, I would like to keep about 10 million in my ending cash balance, 10%. Between 5 and 10% is recommended. For the first round, I'm going to go to 10%. So I want to correct this problem first with aft. And you can see my net profit margin with Adam and Agape are also low. And I think I can increase my price a bit looking at what happened in the first round. So for Adam, I'll leave it that the same. For aft, let's go up and I'm going to look at my report for aft first and see aft is looking at the ideal price range is 25 to 35. So let's go up for aft. Let's go up to 32.95 for that price. All right, because we did increase our promotion budget. And what is it for Agape? All right, for the size, I believe that one's going to be the size. For Agape, it's again 25, but you can see it's number 4 in terms of buying criteria. It's not the top buying criteria. So I'm going to go up just a little bit for Agape and go to 33.45 on that one, maybe even 33.95. All right. Okay. So that does increase my contribution margin a bit. When I look at my pro forma, we're still losing money for apps. So let's go back and see what we can do. a marketing page for aft. Let's go up to $33.95 and reduce our promotion budget a bit here. And recalculate. All right. And when I go back to my pro formas, I can see now that I'm going in the right direction, but I'm still losing money on the aft product. And again, this is going to take some tweaking. I don't want to increase my forecast because at this point, I'm going in the opposite direction with that. I'm actually reducing my investments and increasing my price here. So I don't feel comfortable that that's going to definitely not increase my demand, but it's more important that I make the business model work. So when I go back to, I am making money now, I'm out of the red. I'm also increasing my net profit. Let's go to my finance decision and see how that works out. I've got almost 10% of my projected net revenues. When I go to my income statement, projected to be 106 million. So I have almost 10%. So I feel pretty good. I don't need to borrow money this round. I don't want to issue new stock. I just noticed that. Why? Because issuing new stock can have the impact of depressing the price per share. All right, so let's not issue new stock. And that means we will need to borrow some money, but this is going to be long-term debt. And I'm borrowing $5 million. Okay, because I do not want to affect my price per share. Your earnings per share is still really, really low. And by issuing new stock, you're going to increase the number of shares outstanding. Remember, the earnings per share number is just your earnings divided by the number of shares outstanding. So if you increase the number of shares outstanding, then your earnings per share will go down and that will depress your stock price. Okay, so now I got all my decisions. I'm going to upload my official decisions. All right. Let's click on save. And I'm going to exit out of here. All right. Exit. And I am going to go to the next round. Advance to the next round. Continue. Yes, advance my game. I go back to the dashboard. And what I'm going to do first is look at my reports, go to debrief reports, your balance scorecard. Now I have my score up to 62. If you click on the 62, that's the 96th percentile. So that's for round one. So we can redo round one, but we have it pretty high now. I wouldn't redo it. Instead, we'll continue on to decisions. And what's the first thing we're going to do as we start practice round two is we're going to look at our reports and see what happened to the front page report. So after you enter your decisions for round two, again, update your official decisions, exit out of the round. All right. And then go back and click on next round. I think it's going to be a bar right here. Move on to the next round. So you can process the rounds yourself. You can go all the way through the 4 rounds if you want to, but keep in mind there's a new menu in round 2, the HR menu, 2 new decisions. Watch the tutorial for that. And in addition to that, in round 3, there will be another menu called the TQM, Total Quality Management menu, that we'll talk about next week. So I hope this was helpful. And if you need any help, let me know. We can schedule a one-on-one meeting if that is something you think you need. So everybody take care, and we'll see you in class next week. Happy Valentine's Day.